I'm Leah Lawrence.
And I'm her husband, Mitch Lawrence.
And you are listening to the Southern Spirits Podcast, where I regale my husband with Southern stories of the macabre, creepy, and strange.
And I drink.
So what are you drinking tonight, Mitchell?
Our beer tonight is a cider. Leah, aren't you excited about that?
Yes, always.
It's Treehorn Cider. It's from Treehorn LLC in Marietta, Georgia. 5.9% alcohol by volume. Let's read the can. Locally made with 100% fresh pressed apples, Treehorn's original flagship cider has a dry, subtle sweetness, never cloying. Don't even know what that word means.
Cloying means like sugary sweet, too much.
All right, moving on. With a blend of American apples selected just for cider, the complex flavor and fruity esters give Treehorn Cider a tart apple and citrus aroma, bright and lively mouthfeel, and a soft mineral finish with focused acidity. End quote. All right, personal review time. I would say that this is like a champagne that's apple flavored. It's really freaking good. When they say that dryness in there, yeah, it's like drinking like a brut champagne almost. And then it's just really apple-y on the back end of it. And it's so good. I absolutely love this, Leah. How do you feel about it?
It's really good. It's not super sweet, like it said. It's a basic good cider that is super drinkable. It's not so sweet that it's going to make your stomach hurt. I like it.
Yeah, I do too, a lot. Damn good. Damn good. And I gave it a 10 out of 10 because it's just fucking good.
Yeah.
And at our beer shop where we buy this stuff, we saw that they had a whole bunch of flavors. And we weren't just going to buy like 4 flavors and bring them home. Leo said, let's just get the original and try that. I said, sounds great. So now we're going to try all the rest of them as soon as I can go back and get some.
Which may be a while, because we bought a lot of beer when we went.
No, we didn't. We only got like 5 or 6.
Yeah, but we already had a couple left.
Anyway, we'll go back soon.
It's going to be a couple months before we have to get beer again, is my point.
Yeah.
We're trying to limit our contact in
right.
Stores. I was trying to think of the word. Shit.
Well, yeah, that's it for the beer. So, our shot in the dark for the night, Purveyor Series Double Oak Bourbon. Bottled and aged by John Emerald Distilling Company in Opelika, Alabama. 43% alcohol by volume. Let's read the bottle on this one. Bourbon whiskey finished with toasted American white oak chips. Damn, I'm bad at reading tonight. I've also had a few ciders. They're real good. Personal review, it's bourbon. And I'm not really a bourbon fan. Leah's not either. She hasn't tried it yet, though.
No.
It's got that very strong and distinct bourbon flavor and kick. It's not anything different from any other bourbon you've ever had. Nothing out of the ordinary. It's serviceable. If you like bourbon, I'm sure this is good. I'm not a bourbon fan. This got a 7 out of 10 on ice. Passable. Not the best.
I've never had anything from John Emerald that wasn't a high quality product, regardless of whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
So I would probably venture to say that it's a good bourbon if you like bourbon, but
Yeah.
I'm just not a huge bourbon fan, so.
I'll agree with you on that. It's probably really good, but I just don't care for it.
Exactly.
Mixed it with cola, Kroger brand cola, 7.5 out of 10. Makes it a little bit better. Just that extra added sweetness takes it down a little bit easier. So 7.25 out of 10 overall. And the alcohols are done, Leah, and the shots are going to be real rough tonight.
So I've gathered.
Yep.
All right, well, we have mail from a listener today.
Ooh, listener mail.
Let's read the postcard. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
All right, well, this postcard joins us all the way from Finland.
Oh, goodness.
And it is a beautiful postcard of cats that look like they're at like a beer garden hanging out having the best time.
Yeah.
It's like a painted, illustrated scene. It's wonderful. I love it. Okay. Let's see. This says, "Hi, Leah and Mitch. Some summer greetings for you from Finland. We've been road tripping. Seen a bunch of odd museums."
There you go.
Sorry, I've spaced out for a second. Seen a bunch of odd museums and a weird but fun folk art exhibition. Here's hoping Here's hoping you get to travel somewhere. She's got a really fun cursive, but I haven't read cursive since I was like in junior high. Leave me alone. Sorry, I'm a print girl myself.
Go ahead.
Here's hoping you get to travel somewhere from fun this summer too. Stay safe and fantastic, y'all.
Take it from the top.
Taru.
Try it again.
I'm not doing that again. Apparently, I can't read today either. I apologize, but it is a lovely postcard with a fun Finnish Christmas stamp on it, which I love. So
yeah, you said that this was postmarked back in June, so it just got here.
It was postmarked June the 11th, so clearly international mail is taking a hot minute.
Right.
So
Taru, regular contributor, and
seriously,
thank you for that.
And I absolutely adore postcards from everywhere, but being from a different country just makes it even that much more special because, you know, living in the United States, there's not a lot of countries around like there are if you live in somewhere like Europe where there's countries everywhere, you know.
Good point. And that was a cat postcard.
It was.
So let's tell what we learned today from your grandparents, please.
I will. Okay, so my grandparents decided, my grandmother decided that they saw a mouse in their house, a single mouse, and they were like...
About a month ago. And my grandmother freaked out, and instead of calling my cousin, who is literally a pest control specialist, decided that she was going to get a cat. Right.
And my grandfather was like, I don't really think we need a cat. And she was like, oh yeah, we're getting a cat. So he was like, okay, fine, you can have a cat. So they go to the Humane Society and they look around and they said, oh, we have 2 cats and they're both female. And just, how about these 2? And Mom was like, yeah, I'll take both of them. And Papa was like, we're having 2 cats? Excuse me? And anyway, she was like, yes, we're having 2 cats. And he was like, okay, you can have 2 cats. So they brought 2 kittens home. One was a really, really little kitten. And one was maybe a month or like a couple months old. And so the littlest one is a calico and the bigger one is a yellow striped cat. And the little calico's name is Lil Bit. And the bigger one's name is Dolly because I have always wanted a yellow cat named Dolly because Dolly Parton is the queen. And yellow cats are beautiful. And so everything was great until my grandfather took them for their first veterinary appointment and they were going to spay and or neuter the cats because that was part of what you pay for when you adopt them. Well, spay the cats because they're girls. But anyway, so they put them in the cat carrier. They hand them off. You know, it's a no contact. You don't go into the veterinary office. So they come back and the veterinary tech says, yeah, the little kitten is a lot smaller than, she's younger than the Humane Society said she is. And we've got to wait a month to do it. It's just not safe at her age. And they said, okay. Yep. And the other one, they said, well, we're not sure about this one. We think it may have already been fixed, but it's also possible that it's so young that its testicles hasn't descended. And my grandfather said, excuse me? We were told it was a female. And they were like, oh no, that's a dude cat. No. And so my grandfather just died laughing. And on the way home, he called my grandmother and he said, we have a problem. And she said, what?
No, he got home and when he walked in the door. But anyway, go ahead.
Walked to the door and said, turns out Dolly is now Wally. Yeah. And so they had been calling this cat Dolly Parton this whole time. Yeah. And it is definitely a male. Yeah. So
the way that we found out about this today, they told us this story after we were sitting in the house playing with the cats, and they kept saying, but with Dolly, he just scratches so bad, and he this and he that. And I was like, what? You mean she, right? Like, you're just misspeaking. And they said, oh, we didn't tell you about that. We said, no, we haven't seen him in 2 weeks. And they were like, oh yeah, well, turns out
Dolly's a Wally.
Wally apparently at least had testicles at one point. So anyway.
And I think it's great because, you know, a lot of drag performers do Dolly Parton impressions. So in my heart and in my mind, Dolly is just a drag queen cat. Yeah. And he's just being the best Dolly Parton that he can be. And I love it.
Yeah. It was spectacular finding this out today.
It's just very strange, and I love it so much. The thing was,
while we were there, Leah's brother called their grandparents just to talk. And so Leah's grandmother put him on speakerphone for whatever reason.
Because she's old and likes speakerphones. I hate speakerphones,
And Leah's
y'all.
brother, you could hear him on the speakerphone go, "So how's Wally doing with the sex change?" Yeah, oh, man. It was great.
It was very funny.
It was great. But yeah, so Leah's grandparents have a, let's just say iffy cat.
It's not iffy. They know what it is.
Well,
we just misgendered it, and I apologize, Dolly, but, you know.
It's still Dolly, though.
Yeah, it's really difficult to tell cats.
Early.
I mean, I was going to say, sexing kittens is incredibly difficult. So, I mean, I don't blame them. I just think it's really funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so those two are the cutest little kittens in the whole wide world.
They
And
are.
my grandfather has definitely come around to them, and he loves them just as much as she does. So,
Even though one of them has made a change. And he's a very conservative old man.
yes,
so
but they're all supportive of the kittens.
he's
so.
taken to it
Yeah.
with ease, apparently.
Indeed. All right, so now that we have the cat story completed, we have a brand new member of the Possum Passo.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. Let's get some sound effects. Hold on. Let's gong it. Motherfucker.
Can I
work.
get a yeehaw?
Let me, dark dog snarl. Wait. Okay. And then we'll go down to laser. And you want one yeehaw, right?
One yeehaw.
Okay.
Yeehaw! All right, thank you.
Okay.
We are going to welcome Morgan to the Possum Passo.
Welcome,
Everybody welcome Morgan.
Yay.
Yes! Morgan, thank you so much for contributing to our podcast. I super duper hope that you enjoy the monthly extras that we put out. And we're going to be releasing another one shortly, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to record it. But, after that, we will be, releasing one for July as well.
Well, luckily this week I'm done with school for the summer, so we can get it done in the next week.
So we've been waiting for him to sort of be finishing up with his semester of school so we can get that taken care of and released, and we will let you know on social media when that goes up. So if you're not a member of the community chat, go on Facebook, search Southern Spirits Community Chat, request to join, and we'll add you to our group. It's kind of fun. There's lots of memes. You'll enjoy it. And if you wanted to contribute to the podcast as well, you can join the Possum Passo as well. Just go to patreon.com/Southern Spirits Podcast. We've got tiers all the way from $1 all the way up to $20. If you can contribute, do so. If you can't, no problem. Listening is fantastic. Thank you so much. Yes. And you can tell your friends about us because we'd love other people to start listening to us as well. So it'll be great.
Awesome. I would enjoy that. Because then more people help us pay for the beer.
And server space and etc. You know the spiel. We have a lot of bills to keep the company up and running. And we really appreciate all the help that we get from our listeners. So thank you very much, Morgan, and the entire rest of the Possum Passo. You are fantastic. You are wonderful. We appreciate every single one of you.
Thank you for paying for this cider.
It is delicious cider.
That's really all that,
cheers.
That's really it.
All right.
That's all that I have to say, because the cider's my favorite part.
Yeah. Are you ready for a sassy Southern saying?
If we're going to do it. Let me guess what it is this week.
Okay, go ahead.
Wait a second. As confusing as my cat's sexual identity. There we go.
No. And
God damn it.
No.
I knew it was going to be something your grandmother has said before. And I think that's going to be it.
It is, but no.
Yeah, okay.
This one is, I'm just hanging out here like hair in a biscuit.
Okay, I know what this is. Because, again, this is one that was used in baseball growing up. Because when you have a good at-bat, like say you get 2 strikes on you and you keep fouling balls off so that you continue your at-bat, you don't strike out or ground out or anything like that, they say hang in there like a hair in a biscuit. Which just means, as anyone who knows, has ingested food in their life, if you get a hair in something, it's real hard to get out. That's it. There you go.
I mean, kinda, but to me...
Nope, that's it. First story, go ahead.
No. So the way that I've heard it used more often is... it's more like it's awkward and uncomfortable and weird, but it's a situation you can't get out of. It's like... just an uncomfortable, awkward situation where you're sticking out like a sore thumb and you just, can't get out of there, so you just got to stick in there like hair in a biscuit. So yeah.
Well, that's not
similar.
how it's used in baseball.
Well, I'm sorry, but I did not grow up playing baseball.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well, there's a lot of gross shit that goes on in baseball, though. Like,
I don't want to know about it.
Yeah, I mean, like that one. I mean, there's a lot of food references, and it's gross. Anyway, is that it?
Yeah, that was everything.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm gonna have me a nice hairy biscuit for breakfast tomorrow.
That is disgusting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've just gotten used to the idea that I've probably ingested a shitload of dog hair in
and
the last
cat
few
hair,
years.
and yeah.
I mean, there's hair everywhere in our house. Like, we could sweep, and then 2 days later, there's just a ball of white fur from the dog in the middle of the floor again, like a giant fucking ball. Mm-hmm. And anyway, so we just don't sweep anymore is my point. Because the same amount of hair ends up wherever we go.
We do sweep. We just wait till people come over so it can be freshly swept.
Yeah, and the best part about quarantine is that, like, we went to sweep after 2 months of not having anyone over to record Trailer Trashy, and then it's the exact same amount of hair that it is the week later.
Yeah,
It's like it hits a maximum quota, and then it's like, okay, what do we do with the rest of this shit? There's got to be holes in the floor or something, or maybe Samus just drops her hair off and goes, y'all moved this, I'm going to put some more here. And don't move it this time, right?
It's possible.
It just all builds up under the coffee maker. And, yeah, she's a cunt.
She is not. She is a sweet, delicate doggo.
She is. She's the best.
All right. Well, are you ready to get into our very first story of the evening?
Yes.
All right.
I sure am.
Well, we are going to the great state of Tennessee, to Memphis specifically, and we are talking about Pink Lizzie.
Oh. Anyway, I'm not going to make any porn jokes.
Please don't, because it's a child ghost, and that's gross.
Damn it, Leah. You should have said, don't make any porn jokes, but we're going to talk about Pink Lizzie. Don't retroactively go back and then tell me to not do it afterwards, because that's not on me. At that point, that is your fault, because you know where my head's going. You should know better.
I should know better instead of you should be better?
Yes.
I don't think that's how that works.
Doesn't fall on me.
All right. Well, we are talking about the ghost called Pink Lizzie. So this story is very interesting, and I like it, and I'm going to make you listen to it. So this starts at a place called the Brinkley Female College, and it was sort of like a boarding school for young women, and it was located on South 5th Street, which was an area of Memphis at the time that was, filled with a lot of big mansions and state homes and just fancy yards and that kind of thing. Wealthy people live there. Nowadays, it's all like railroad buildings and warehouses, so the building is no longer there. I think it was finally torn down in the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
So this is not a ghost that is still, ghosting. And if she is, it's in a warehouse somewhere in Memphis. But in the time period, so I believe it was between 1855 and 1859 was the time span that this house was built in by a Colonel W.J. Davy. And he built a big 2-story mansion, had the sort of Greek revival columns on the front. It was a real big, pretty, like sort of state house kind of thing.
It sounds pretty.
And after the Civil War ended, it was sold off and it was transformed into the Brinkley Female College. And the school was kind of a weird place even after it just opened, because the guy that opened it and started running the school, the founder, apparently went bankrupt and went insane and died in some crazy situation. So it already has some weirdness attached to it, but the weirdness that we're going to talk about is a ghost. All right. So on Tuesday, February the 21st of 1871, there was a little girl who was a student there at the school. Now, it was a boarding school for a lot of the students, but students that lived in town could use the school as a day school as well. So she was one of their day school, pupils, and she, went home to her own estate every day. So Clara Robertson was sitting in the music practice room on one of the upper floor rooms there at the college, and she was, practicing her piano lesson, doing what she's supposed to do, piano. She was 12 years old, by the way. I don't know that I ever said that. But she was in the piano room doing her lesson, doing what she was supposed to do. Just having a great time planking at that piano.
Planking at it?
Planking at it.
Is that how you do a piano? You plank it?
I had a...
you just lay on top of it flat?
No, I took piano lessons by a very old Southern lady named Vondell when I was a child. And she called it Plankin and Plunkin, and you have to play the piano. You can't plank it and plunk it.
Well, then, what the fuck was she doing then?
Huh?
It sounds like Vondell was a terrible fucking instructor.
No, she actually taught just about everybody in Hartselle how to play the piano if they took lessons at all in that time. But anyway.
But she said she called it planking and plunking, but you're supposed to play.
You can't just smack around on the keyboard.
And planking. Okay.
Yeah, like smacking it around and not paying attention to the music was planking. You gotta... play the music, don't plank it.
Did anybody need to be told that?
I mean, yeah, because I was like 7 and I was exuberant, okay?
You were?
Yeah.
When have you... There's not a chance in hell that you have ever been exuberant.
You have clearly never seen the dance recital videos of me when I was a very young child.
God, I want to. That is next month's Patreon exclusive. We will be live streaming.
That was the time period when my dad first got the camcorder that was the big on-the-shoulder heavy one.
The boombox one.
Yeah, and they still have the VHS tapes of all of that stuff, of me in my little ballet slippers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is 100% a thing. And that was also the time period in the 90s where like gluing jewels on everything was a thing. So like all of my dance costumes were just covered in glitter glue and rhinestones. It was a look.
Please tell me that for that creativity class that you did, where you wrote the album for, that you also developed an interpretive dance.
I did not.
Oh man, I want that so bad.
Sorry, it never happened.
Oh, shit.
Sorry.
Well, Patreon exclusive next month, Leah's dance recitals.
That is not happening.
We'll find some of my old like baseball games and shit.
No one wants to see that.
Yeah, it would be way worse than the dance recitals, but let's be equal here. Let's be equal.
I was fucking adorable at that age.
Yeah.
I was a beautiful baby. I was a super cute kid. Like, I was adorable until I hit about age 8, and then everything just like
Puberty happened.
Yeah, like I wasted the beauty, all of my attractiveness as a very young child. I just
Well,
hate it.
I have no comment, Leah.
I was a very pretty baby. It all went downhill from there.
Go back to the Plankin and Plunkin.
Well, you shouldn't have distracted me.
You're right. This is my fault.
All right. So she was a Plankin and a Plunkin, just playing her music lesson. And all of a sudden, she sees an apparition, which she didn't know was an apparition at the time, but, she figured it out.
What'd she think it was?
Well, it was the apparition of an 8-year-old little girl, but she was real emaciated looking, and her eyes looked weird, and she was just sort of shriveled up almost, and she was wearing a pink dress, and it was a little torn, and it looked like it was covered in mold. And she wore sort of weird little shoes, and her stockings were all ripped. And Clara was really startled, and she's like, ew, what's this dirty girl doing up here? And then she realized that she was kind of transparent, and she's like, well, fuck, I don't think that thing's real. And it scared the shit out of her. Ugh. So Clara runs off just screaming and hollering into the dorm section of the house. And she sort of gets into the room with another girl, and she's screaming, and the girl is like, what the fuck are you doing in my room? Are you okay? And the ghost, being a ghost, follows her just through the wall, drifts through, and sort of taps her on the head, just like, hey, the fuck, why are you not paying attention to me? And she was terrified, so she ran out of that room and down the hall to like an adult to find a teacher, and she told him what happened. And of course the teacher didn't believe her.
Yeah,
the other pupils didn't believe her, and she left just absolutely just torn apart, upset, because nobody believed her. She got teased all day. It was just the worst. So when Clara came back to school the next morning, she was kind of miffed about it. She's mad at everybody that was, doing that. And she had kind of convinced herself that it was all her classmates just playing a prank on her or something like that. So she was like, okay, this isn't a problem. We're good. Okay. So she went without any kind of incident that day. But the next day on Thursday, Clara was in the music room again with 2 other students, and they were all practicing their piano music. And she heard sort of a weird dripping water sound, and she sort of turned around and saw this little girl apparition again standing in the room. And she was like, oh, I do not know. And the other 2 girls say that they saw a little bit of like sort of the outline, but they didn't see it as vividly as she did. And they were all freaked out, and they ran out of the room again. And of course the other students laughed their asses off at them again because, oh, you're seeing ghosts, spooky. Like kids are jerks, and they're going to make fun of anything that's a little bit different.
I agree. Kids are the worst.
Yeah, not the greatest. So they ran screaming to one of their teachers, and the teacher, Miss Boone, brought them back to the music room and looked and tried to see, what's going on, and she saw absolutely nothing. She was like, look, there's nothing here. What's your deal? But when they opened, when the adult left, the ghost showed itself again, and the ghost was pointing her finger sort of towards the south, and she started talking, and the ghost told little Clara that there was some real valuable stuff buried about 50 yards away from the house in the direction that she was pointing, and that she wanted Clara to go find the jar and take what's in the jar to be hers. And as soon as she was done saying that, the ghost disappeared, and everybody was like, what? Excuse me, what?
Oh, excuse me?
Yeah, so she went home and she told her daddy everything that had happened. And her daddy's name was J.C. Robertson, and he was a local attorney, and he was a little disturbed by that whole situation. And Clara really didn't want to fucking go back to school at this point because she's been seeing this scary little apparition everywhere, and she's being made fun of for it, and it's just a whole problem. So she absolutely refuses to go back to school. And Mr. Robertson's like, we're paying a whole lot of money for you to go to this school. You're going to go to this school. So he went to the principal, whose name was Mr. Meredith, and he had a discussion, and they agreed that the whole situation should probably be investigated a little bit more, because Mr. Robertson was worried about his daughter. Mr. Meredith was really worried about the reputation of his school, because at this point the accounts of these ghost sightings had been reported to the local paper, and a big fuss had been made about it in the paper.
Right. We can't have big fusses.
No big fusses. So the next week, after the visit, they decided to go ahead and go to the schoolyard, and they gathered all of the students, and they started questioning about who had seen what was going on, all of that stuff. Just sort of trying to get all the stories straight from all the different people that may have experienced something. And while they were all assembled in the courtyard, the little ghost girl shows up again in front of Clara. And Clara gets freaked out again, like of course she was.
Right.
And Clara said that the little girl said, my name is Lizzie. I'm not going to hurt you. Like, I'm cool. I'm a good ghost. Don't worry about it.
I don't believe you, Lizzie.
Right? And the little girl said that basically her daddy was the one that built the house, and that the property that the school was on belonged to her family, and the current owners had stolen it illegally from her family.
Oh, no.
And that basically she needed someone to fix everything because, you know, her entire family had died. I mean, there was no one in her own family to avenge the theft, I guess. So she wanted Clara to do it. So Lizzie wanted Clara to get these valuable items from the jar, which apparently included the deed to the property. And
That's
she
pretty
said,
valuable, I'd say.
Yeah. She said, please go dig up this jar for me. And she said that she basically would keep bothering everybody in the school and would never do any good to anybody, just be a haunting little haint if she didn't go and do it. And so Clara told everybody what the ghost said, and everybody freaked out and was like, oh, we don't like being here with this ghost. It's not cool. So Clara once again goes home and is like, I'm not going back. You can't make me. Absolutely not. And her dad was like, yeah, you kind of have to, though. So I said before,
I can make you.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I said before, he was a lawyer there in Memphis, and he had a lot of different clients, obviously, and one of them happened to be a spiritualist medium, and her name was Mrs. Norse. And Mrs. Norse
I'm sorry.
said...
It's not funny, it's just funny the way you said it.
Well, it's spelled Nourse, like course, but with an N, so Norse.
Interesting.
So he got Mrs. Norris to come over, and they all got together in the Robertson home. And what did they do? They had a seance.
Yeah,
yes.
Called it.
And they had several neighbors show up to attend, just witnesses, I guess. Right. So they all seated at the table. They got their hands together, all that shit. And they start seancing. So apparently the spirit takes over full control of Clara, and she sort of slumps over, and then her arms start flailing and getting crazy, and her hands start twitching.
Right.
And her parents are a little bit freaking out. They had to try to restrain her to keep her from flopping all over the place. And eventually she sort of calmed down and started just sort of moving her hand like she was writing something. Okay. So Mrs. Norris gives her a pen and a paper, and Clara starts writing. And it sort of starts out as sort of a chicken scratch, can't tell what it is, but eventually they start to be able to read these words, and she fills lots of pages, just talking about all of the events of what has gone on, the name of the girl. The spirit is the one writing it, so it's the from the point of view of the ghost, and she calls the ghost calls itself Lizzie Davy, and she just keeps writing. And so the attendant people, all the people that are there that are at the seance, start asking questions, and she would reply her answer by writing it. And so the spirit being channeled through Clara revealed that the valuables included some gold jewelry, a diamond necklace, several thousand dollars in gold coins, and the deed papers to the house, and they were all buried in a jar. It was buried in the sort of courtyard in front of the house under this tree stump.
I love buried shit.
Yeah, it was under this tree stump where the ghost had sort of appeared in the schoolyard earlier.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So after this seance was over, her dad and a couple of the men that had attended the seance went to the school, and after talking to everybody, they were like, yeah, everybody's sort of believing her at this time. So they get permission from the headmaster to sort of I guess, dig under the stump to see if they could find anything. And at this point in time, it had become a little spiritualist brouhaha there in Memphis because the paper had gotten a hold of it, all that stuff. So the story was spread. Everybody knows about it. And spiritualism was becoming a big deal in this time period anyway. And it just sort of cropped up everywhere. And so there were mediums all over, like not even related to these people or this story at all, just started holding seances all over the place about this particular ghost, and they say that they were communing with this ghost and all that stuff. And Clara attended a couple of the seances, and she was possessed by Lizzie and did the auto writing and stuff like that in a couple of them. So it became a thing. She was a bit of a sensation, and so they agreed to dig up the space under that stump, because they obviously knew that until they tried to dig something up, none of this story would go away. And the Merediths really wanted it to go away because they wanted to go back to running their girls' school, because that's how they made their fucking money. So it got so bad, like the people in Memphis had sort of heard that they were going to dig the day that they went to dig, and they had to get the police out there to restrain the crowd because hundreds of people showed up trying to get into the schoolyard to watch them digging this whole thing up. So there was an interview done that day with the father in the Memphis Daily Avalanche, which was a daily paper there in Memphis in the time period. And he basically said, "No, my daughter's not a spiritualist. This is just a one-time thing. She got possessed by like this one spirit. Like, come on. This is like a real story and shit." So the men
very convincing.
Yeah. The men start digging under this stump, and they discover a layer of bricks. And they were like, "Oh, this is interesting." So they completely removed the tree stump, and they kept sort of excavating this area. And Clara absolutely refused to be there at the school when it was being dug up. So she was playing in her backyard, and the ghost appears to her during the time they were digging it. And the ghost was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, why the fuck are you not the one going out and digging at the jar? Like, excuse me." And she basically told Clara that she had to be the one to find it. She had to be the one to get it out of the ground. It was Clara's responsibility. If she doesn't go do it, like, she's going to wreak havoc everywhere in the school. So Clara goes inside and tells her family, "Hey, I should probably be over there. We don't want havoc to be wrought." And so they get her and they take her to the school where the excavation was happening. And Clara was like, "Hey, Lizzie said that I should be the one to do this."
So did she?
Yeah. So they had been able to find a bunch of like bricks and a pathway and stuff like that, but they hadn't found the jar that they had said was going to be there. So they were like, "Hey, Clara, why don't you ask Lizzie where exactly we should dig?" And Clara was like, "I guess, fine." So she says, like, "Lizzie, tell me where to fucking dig." And Lizzie shows up and she's like, "You're the only person that should dig for this stuff. And here's where you should dig." And Clara's like, "Okay." So they kind of dug up a little area of the place, so she could get a head start to dig. And as soon as she stepped down into the hole to start digging herself, she fainted. And so I have no idea.
Exertion? I mean,
I don't know. She just, I guess, was freaked out about it. I don't know. But so she said that when she was woken up from the passing out part, she told everybody, "I know exactly where we need to dig. I know what the jar is and all of that stuff."
I know what the jar is.
And so the Norse lady decided, hey, they need another seance to figure out the rules of who has to be able to dig this stuff up before we can continue. So they have another seance and they do some dealing with Lizzie, and Clara was like, "I can't dig it up. I pass out if I even look at a shovel. Can my dad do it?
God damn
And
it,
Lizzie was like, yeah, sure, I guess. So Clara's dad starts digging instead of her. And so they did, in fact, uncover a jar.
Oh, no.
And this jar was about 12 inches tall, 10 inches wide. They saw several bags and a large envelope inside this jar. It was like a clear glass jar, but it was real moldy on the outside. But the stipulation from the ghost was you cannot open it for 60 days.
Well, fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I want, motherfucker.
And so they agreed. They said, okay, Lizzie, no problem. We won't touch it for 60 days. So Mr. Robertson decided that he would go hide it in his home in a safe place, and they would wait 60 days. So, shot in the dark.
Son of a bitch. Here we go.
Where did Mr. Robertson hide the jar?
Okay.
Was it A, in the wine cellar, B, in the outhouse, or C, under the bed?
I would just love for it to be in the outhouse. I want to say outhouse.
You're correct.
Yay! I'm so happy that you have to take this bourbon shot. You are going to die.
I don't want to die.
Ugh.
Unless I can become a moldy ghost to fuck with people about jars.
You should. You should 100%.
I'm just going to bury a bunch of random bullshit in pickle jars all over the place and just come back and be like, hey.
Put
There's
this in your shitter.
There's
Keep
like
it there.
$13 buried 6 trees down. You're the only one who can dig it up,
It's
bitch.
accrued interest over the years. It's still old cash, but trust me, it's worth something. You got this. I believe in you.
I made
What?
myself laugh.
Why? What'd you do? Get on your microphone first of all.
Just Mount Olive pickle jars. It's going to be my calling card.
Oh, yeah. You should definitely become like a serial killer and just leave Mount Olive pickle jars around. Ugh. How was it? Really terrible, right? Because it's bourbon. Uh-oh. You're not going to throw up, are you? Oh, Jesus. That was low. I hope that picked up on the microphone. That was a low rumbler.
No, it tastes like bourbon. It's fine.
Yeah. It's not, like I said, it's not bad. It's just bourbon.
It's not bad. It's not, I mean, I also don't think you should shoot bourbon, but
no, you shouldn't.
It's fine.
Yeah. You shouldn't do a lot of things we do on this show, but we do them.
Including drinking every week for a show, but whatever you...
Well, you know,
I
mean, that part's fine. That's not a big deal, but...
All right,
also not advisable.
No, but I mean, that's the only time of the week that we do drink anything, so there you go. I am...
Uh-oh.
Woo.
Leah's gonna burp the rest of the night. How's it going over there?
Unpleasant. Okay. Yeah, so he decided that the safest place in his home would be to take it to the outhouse.
Somewhere not even in his home.
Yeah.
Right.
He tied a rope around the top of the jar.
Oh, no.
Stuck it down the hole and tied it to the seat.
Oh, no.
And so anytime anybody'd go out there, they'd take the jar up and sit it on the side and they'd squat and then they'd put it back down there.
But it's still down there with everything.
Yeah, it's above it.
Leah, I don't like it.
It's hanging in the space. Like if it was a porta potty, it's hanging in the space over the sludge.
That jar smelled so bad, though, didn't it?
I'm sure it did, but it would keep people from like trying to poke around in there and get at it, you know? Because it's a shithole.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all, Leah.
I'm sorry.
I don't like it.
Anyway, so that's where he hid it. And he decided, the whole family was like, Claire's been through a whole lot of shit. Let's go send her off for the next 60 days to stay with some relatives out of town. Let all this hubbub die off before we're able to open this jar. So they decided that what was going to happen is, in 60 days, they would open the jar in a public show.
Oh, did they sell tickets?
Well, that's what I'm telling you that now.
I'm sorry.
At the Greenlaw Opera House there in Memphis. And they were selling tickets for $1 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah. And half of the proceeds were going to go to Clara because she has been traumatized by all of the situation.
I agree.
And the other half they were going to donate to the church home, which was an orphanage
What?
operated by the Episcopalian church there in town.
Okay.
But when the Episcopalian bishop, whose name was Charles Quintard, heard that they were planning on doing that, he said, we are not taking any money that came from any kind of ghostly doing, so no thank you. I don't know. I guess he just wasn't into it.
Is ghost money not green too?
Apparently not. Not to him. So, unfortunately, that never happened because one night, Mr. Robertson.
Are you okay?
No, I am not. Mr. Robertson had some folks over, and he heard some odd rustling noises outside, and he went out to investigate, but he didn't come back inside, and his guests were like, what the hell? And so they go outside looking for him, and they find him lying on the yard bloody in the head and passed out.
Okay.
Once they finally revived him, he said that 4 men had attacked him at gunpoint, demanded to know the location of the jar, so he took him to the shitter. And he said, it's down there. And so they took the jar and left him for dead on the lawn. Mm-hmm. So basically that was the end of the story.
Wow.
Shitter hole jar.
What a tale, Leah.
Yeah.
Good God.
So Clara did say that the ghost contacted her again in another seance, and it gave her the location of the jar and names and descriptions of the people that stole it. But she was done at this point. The whole family was done at this point, and they never went after it. So that is the story of Pink Lizzie.
Well, that was kind of fucked up, I think.
I think so too.
Especially the shithole jar. Why keep it there? That's so weird. I hate it.
Because it was the safest place in the house, Mitchell.
But it wasn't in the house.
Exactly.
Obviously, it wasn't that safe. I hate it. I hate everything about it. Every last bit of that. But I'm done talking about it, so.
Okay.
And let's just move on.
All right.
I really hate the shithole jar, though. It's my least favorite thing.
Shithole jar, won't you come?
I don't know how that was the fucking... God damn it, Leah. I don't know how that was the tune that was chosen. But god damn. Any 3-syllable 2 words will work. Shithole jar. Okay, now you're gonna have me singing that all night. Fucking shit. I'm so upset with you.
I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry, it turns out.
No, you've never been sorry
hell.
in your life.
Oh, that was good chuckle.
I'm so happy for you that you got a good chuckle out of it.
Well, are you ready to move on to something slightly more sinister?
Jar, won't you shit the whole jar? Oh no, I'll figure out something.
Okay.
Yeah, did you say less sinister?
More sinister.
More sinister. Ooh, perfect. More sinister than a shit-covered jar?
There wasn't shit on the jar. It was suspended above the shit.
There's no way there wasn't shit on the jar.
Well, I mean, someone probably forgot to pull the rope up one time.
Saying. Who shit on the jar? Get out here and clean it. Come on.
The ghost gets real pissed off when you shit on her jar.
Who did this? You knew there was a jar down there. You move it before you do it.
Oh, and I forgot to say, that particular story, I found that story in a bunch of different areas and places, but the most complete and best version of that story I found was in a book called Haunted Memphis by a woman named Laura Cunningham. So that's where that whole story came from, Haunted Memphis, and it's got a lot of other interesting stories if you're interested.
I don't think I am. I think that was enough.
All right. Well, are you ready for the second story of the evening?
Why, sure I am.
All right. Well, we are talking about one of the most mysterious disappearance cases in the state of Alabama.
Okay.
It's called the Brasher Dye disappearance.
All right. Interesting. I don't believe I've heard of this before.
See, and I hadn't either, and it's apparently like one of the most famous things that's ever happened in Alabama. But I didn't know about it. But when we went to Tallulah for that live show, Allison, the woman who helped us get that arranged, she's Bama Brew Girl on Instagram. Go follow her Instagram page if you like craft beer. Great page to follow. But she was telling me about it, and that was the first time I'd ever heard about it, because I think she did a paper in college or something about it, and it's very interesting stuff. And like I said, I'm probably not going to go in depth as some people would with all the little side tangent conspiracy theories and stuff. I'm going to hit the main highlights of the main story.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about it. All right. So this happened in 1956 on March the 3rd, and there were two brothers, Billy Howard and Robert Earl Dye, and they had an older cousin named Dan Brasher. So those are the Dyes and Brashers of the Brasher-Dye disappearance. And they left a relative's home. This is in Jefferson County, so around about the middle of the state, around Birmingham, if you know where that is, but in the more rural parts of the county. And once again, it was in 1956, so there was a lot more rural down there than there is now.
Okay.
But they were leaving a relative's house in the rural backwoods of Jefferson County to go to a party in Robinwood. So shot in the dark.
Oh no, it's too cold.
So they had gone to this party, and they drove off in Billy, the Dye brothers' 1947 Ford.
Okay.
What color was the 1947 Ford?
Oh, Leah, God damn it.
Was it A, green? Was it B, blue? Or was it C, black?
I'm only going to say what I'm going to say because, I mean, obviously there's no way I could get anything close to this. Close to knowing it is what I was trying to say. I'm only going to say what I'm going to say.
Well, that's a shot in the dark.
Because of my cousin Vinny. Yes, Leah, that is definitely a shot in the dark. I'm going to say that it was green. Done.
What does My Cousin Vinny have to do with that?
That was the color of the car in My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, okay. I've never watched that movie all the way through, just bits and pieces on TNT.
Right.
Or AM.
It doesn't matter. What is the answer?
It's green. I hate you a little bit.
I'm so proud of it. I haven't even poured another shot yet, so you got a second to get ready for it. You shouldn't have put these so close together. Oh.
It was a mistake on my part. I thought you would get them both wrong, and I would think it was funny.
Here you go. And she just downed it.
Ugh.
Like a pro. Yeah, this bourbon's rough, isn't it?
No, it's really not.
It's just that it's bourbon. You know.
And also shots.
Yeah. Well, where were we?
I don't fucking know. There's a green car involved. That's all I got.
There we go. The Buick Skylark. That's my Marissa Tomei impression.
Oh, yeah. No, this was a 47 green Ford. Yep. But anyway, so... Ugh. I'm burping up bourbon. This ain't cute.
Yeah. It's from the cola, though. That you washed it down with.
Anyway, so they drove off to the party and then away from the party in a green 1947 Ford. And Robinwood apparently is just outside of Morris, Alabama, if you know where that is.
I don't.
And after they left for that party, no one saw them again. And obviously that's what the disappearance part of the Brasher-Dye disappearance is. But anyway, so there's lots of theories as to what actually happened to these men after they left that party. So we're going to be discussing the main one, but there were some other things. So some people thought they were like executed in a cave in Blount County. Some people thought they found some strands of human hair in like a coal shaft, an abandoned coal shaft, and they're like, oh, we think someone pushed him down there. But the main conspiracy theory, one that's stuck in everybody's mind, is the one that I'm about to tell you right now. So in the area of Jefferson County that we're talking about, at that point in time, there were lots and lots of illegal distillation rackets going on. Moonshiners. There's lots of moonshiners.
NASCAR drivers.
No, not at this point. But so it's really hilly and backwoodsy in this particular area. Real, not quite mountainous, but it's the foothills of the Appalachians, so it's real.
Go ahead.
Craggy. I don't know.
Hilly?
It was very easy to hide moonshine stills in the area, is what I'm trying to say. And moonshine was a really big business to the locals there because, it was not a great economic area, and it wasn't a great time economically speaking for the people of Alabama. So, people did what they had to get by, and what a lot of people had to do to get by was moonshine. And so it was sort of a thing in that area that, you just don't talk about it, basically, and you don't fuck with other people's moonshine. Excuse me. Well, unfortunately, y'all. I don't know if we can get through this story.
You got it. Come on.
So, unfortunately, for the three men that disappeared, they were all known as drinkers. They liked to party. They liked to get drunk. And what is generally agreed upon is what happened was that they probably stole some moonshine from some folks that they should not have.
Right.
And they got disappeared real fast.
Oh, no.
So when the two brothers and the cousin didn't show up the next day at their house after that party, and everybody knew they were going to that party, nobody really minded all that much. It wasn't unusual. Even their family was like, not a big deal. They've done this shit before. We'll see them in a couple days. They, like I said, were known to be really heavy drinkers, and everybody knew they had gone to a party, and everybody kind of suspected that they were hungover, sitting in a jail cell somewhere, just waiting to get out of the drunk tank, But the one of the guys had a job sort of doing construction work on one of the new highways that was being built at the time. Okay. And when he didn't show up for work that next Monday, everybody seemed to be a little bit more serious about the fact that they hadn't found these guys.
There's a problem here.
Yeah, there's an issue now because that guy wouldn't have missed that job. So they still haven't had any contact from these guys. They're worried about it. So their cousin, Curtis Brasher, and the father of the two Brasher brothers, or excuse me, of the two Dye brothers, they go together and they are on a road trip checking all of the jails between Morris and Decatur. So they go pretty far north looking for these boys, trying to find, which drunk tank they wound up in and how to get them out of there. And they didn't find them. They couldn't find any trace, no report, no nothing. Nobody had seen or heard from these guys from Morris to Decatur. And so, like I said, Morris is down about the middle ways of Alabama. Decatur's up north where we live. So that's a pretty big stretch that they searched, and they couldn't find them. So the family went back to Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, and they filed a missing persons report. And the investigators had some issues with getting statements from the locals because basically a lot of them were moonshiners, and they didn't take politely to law enforcement being around their area. Yeah. And it was a really close-knit community, and they were outsiders, and it's just a whole,
Oh, I understand.
You know the situation. Moonshiners don't have a great reputation for being polite to revenuers, That's just a thing.
I do know.
So, like I said, it was really iffy starting out. But eventually they sort of pieced together some witness statements. They said that there were some reports of gunshots that were heard the night that they went missing, by a neighbor of the house that they had gone to for that party. They said, nope, not good. They also said there was a report of men carrying buckets of water from his faucet outside into the neighboring house in early hours of the day after they went to that party, disappeared. And one of the weirdest allegations, and the one that I think stuck because we're going to be talking about this theory, is that a man from Blount County said that he had seen a bulldozer being used early in the morning to bury a car on the construction site where they were putting in U.S. Highway 79 at the time.
Okay.
So, there was not a lot of evidence other than these eyewitness reports about any of these things. So, the investigation sort of tapered off. It didn't really go anywhere. And it basically, they just gave up. And obviously, the father, Curtis Brasher, was real upset about it.
Yeah.
Was very frustrated that the county officials weren't doing anything. So he started writing letters to everybody that he could possibly think of. All of the state officials, Congress people, etc. And he also started trying to piece together stories on his own. And he would continue to do that until he died in the 80s. But his effort, basically in letter writing and putting pressure on different political figures, ended up getting the sheriff of Jefferson County, whose name is Holt McDowell, to assign a deputy specifically to this case. And that deputy's name was Tom Ellison. And the Department of, is it Transit, or who builds the roads?
Transportation, I imagine.
I don't know. Anyway, so at that point, he finally got them to start looking into that because he believed the bulldozer US 79 situation. Okay. And they got them to start drilling into different sections of US 79 looking for any trace of that 47 Ford or the bodies or skeletons or anything. They didn't find anything, obviously, but it was just so sort of local lore by this point that everybody in the area believes that those three were buried in a Ford somewhere under, the highway 79.
Right.
And it just, I guess the story sort of snowballed from there. But the father tried to get more people involved. He even wrote letters back and forth with J. Edgar Hoover, who was, the head of the FBI at the time. And basically it just didn't, I mean, it was the 60s at this point. They had other shit to do. Sorry, bro. It was not as big of a deal to them as it was to this guy.
We have hippies to crack their skulls open.
Yeah, right? So
something like that.
Several years passed, and in 1972, Jefferson County had a new commissioner whose name was Tom Glure, and he brought the case back to the forefront, and he was hardcore of the opinion that they were buried somewhere under 79. And so he ordered workers to start drilling again in different areas. And 3 years later, he even got the U.S. Navy involved, and they got metal detectors and radar and whatever else they had to try to sort of scan the different parts of the highway to see if there was any odd depressions or materials under the highway that shouldn't be there. So they passed those detectors, and there were readings that showed that there were large pieces of metal underneath one particular site. So they ordered another dig, but they didn't find anything at that point. So at this point, he's wasted a lot of time, wasted a lot of money. And then the deputy that was assigned to the case basically said that he got pulled off the case, and he believes, and other people believe as well, that they got pulled from the case because they were too close to sort of uncovering the mystery, I guess.
Oh, shit.
And the conspiracy of that is a lot of people believe that the local sheriff's department was in cahoots with the moonshiners, which I probably believe was the case.
Yeah. Maybe not in murder, but
no,
like,
but I mean, like, in like, if
sure.
I would say they're probably getting kickbacks from the moonshine sales in order to not bust those people, which I probably believe. And they, I don't disagree that it was probably a corrupt situation, but whether they pulled it specifically or not, who knows? But he basically said, like I said, that he believed that the people were buried somewhere under US 79, which is a very long highway, by the way.
It is.
It's a lot of space that you could bury a big old car underneath. So, and there were other witnesses that eventually came forward to say that they saw a car being buried underneath a construction portion of that highway. And other people said that, they saw a bulldozer operating the night of the disappearance, but they could never pinpoint it to an exact location, which of course is why they, haven't been able to really find anything, or maybe they're not there at all. So the theory that guy had eventually was that they were probably killed at the party when they were probably confronted by the people that they had stole moonshine from, and it didn't end up very well. They believe that they were, killed, and he believes that one of them was buried in a different location. The other two were buried under Highway 79 in the car, and he believes that the sheriff's department sort of kept the investigation from progressing because the departments, had ties to the local bootleggers and didn't want to stop that flow of money that they were receiving in kickbacks, which still seems pretty normal. I get it.
It's plausible.
It's very plausible in my personal opinion, just knowing how things operate around here.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it is still... it's a cold case, but it is an open case in Jefferson County, and they do still take, tips and whatnot about that case. And I think it might have been 2016 or so. It might have been earlier than that, but, more recent. They had sort of a tip or of some sort that there was a car that was being, excuse me.
Good God.
That had been buried under US 31 near Gardendale. Excuse me. And they did ground penetrating radar around there, and they didn't find anything credible. No cars, no bodies, no nothing. So basically it's a cold case. It's disappeared. Nobody knows anything. The father ended up dying in the 80s, but he continued to try to find any kind of evidence of what happened to those boys up until the day he died. And it was just really sad. He was one of those people that, like I said, that basically consumed the rest of his life, was trying to find some kind of evidence of what happened to those guys. So, it is a big mystery. It is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in the state, of just a weird... There's no evidence what the fuck happened, So that was the abbreviated version, because I'm a little drunk, story of the Brasher Dye disappearance.
Well, yeah, that's kind of fucked up.
Yep.
I would be real excited to know if they found any cars buried under the highway, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, you're right, though. It was definitely... more fucked up.
Yeah.
So, anyway, do you want to just go into the toast?
Yeah, sure.
Hit it up,
since I can't feel my lips anymore.
I was going to say we don't have anything else to contribute to the story.
I was going to say, it's a sad story, and my lips are completely numb. So we need to get through this toast before I fall asleep. Because Leah doesn't get super drunk without just falling asleep.
Yes,
so
you're very good at it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Everybody hoist your cider high into the sky.
Was that a hiccup?
A little bit.
Go. I'm sorry.
If you've got a real important jar, don't hide it in your shitter. Pink Lizzie's gonna haunt you all 'cause she's a little bitter. Jefferson County hill folk don't play with their moonshine. Steal a jug and you may wind up under 79. I almost said 69.
Hey!
Damn.
You might wind up the bottom on a 69.
Do that. It's
Hot
fine.
damn. Fuck yeah. Oh. Jesus, y'all. We have gone off the rails. I've had too much cider. Leah had 2 shots of bourbon. Things are, it's bedtime. It's bedtime in the Lawrence household.
It is. Agreed.
Yep. And the dogs heard that and immediately ran to their boxes. Except for this one. One of them ran to her box because she's a good girl.
And Dobby's not a good girl.
Dobby is not a good girl.
No.
He might be, though. We just found out the cat,
I was going to say.
Changed, apparently.
Dolly's now Wally. I don't know.
Yep. Dolly, Wally, 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 Dolly, Chameleon.
No, it's Dolly Wally Doodle all the day. You know it's Dolly Wally.
All right, this is too much. Thanks for listening, everybody. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Join the community chat on Facebook. Send us an email, southernspiritspodcast@gmail.com. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/southernspiritspodcast. Become a Possum Passel member and get yourself a shout-out and some stickers and shit, too. And send us postcards, P.O. Box 1743 in Hartselle, Alabama. That's spelled Hartselle 35640. And that will be in the show notes as well. But, Leah, is there anything I forgot?
Nope.
All right, y'all. Well, this was fun. And we will see y'all next week.
Bye, y'all.